Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going deep into the world of cryptography,
Okay.
and specifically PKI.
Public key infrastructure.
Yeah, public key infrastructure, or as it's more commonly known, PKI.
Right.
So you're looking to really get a handle on PKI and how it's used in cybersecurity.
Hmm.
So to help us out with that, we've got some really interesting excerpts from the 2024 CISSP study guide.
Oh, nice.
And this deep dive is all about going beyond just the definitions.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack the why and the how this impacts you of PKI.
That's great. That's what people really need to know.
Absolutely.
It's one thing to know what something is, but it's
Yeah.
a whole other to understand why it matters and how it affects you in your daily life.
Right. You know what's interesting about PKI? It allows us to build trust in the digital world.
Yeah, it's kind of like how we trust people we know in the real world.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But the digital world is so different.
Right.
How do we actually go about building trust using cryptography?
Well, it all starts with something called asymmetric cryptography.
Okay.
It's a pretty clever system that uses a pair of keys.
Okay.
A public key and a private key to secure communications.
I've heard about public and private keys,
Yeah?
but to be honest with you, I'm a bit fuzzy on how they actually work.
Oh,
Can you walk me through it?
Absolutely. So imagine you want to send a confidential email to someone.
Okay.
With asymmetric cryptography, you would use their public key to encrypt the message.
Okay.
It's kind of like putting the message in a special lockbox that only their private key can open.
So anyone can have access to the public key.
Right.
But only the recipient with the corresponding private key
Exactly.
can decrypt the message.
Exactly. And this solves a big problem we had with older symmetric encryption systems,
Okay.
where both the sender and receiver needed to share the same secret key. It was like trying to arrange a secret meeting to exchange a physical key, very risky and not very practical in a global digital world.
Yeah. I can see how sharing keys securely is a big challenge.
Absolutely.
Asymmetric encryption just seems so much more convenient.
Right.
But how does it actually work?
Yeah.
What makes these keys so special?
The most well-known public key system is called RSA,
Okay.
which is named after its inventors,
Okay.
Rivest, Shamir, and Adelman.
Uh-huh.
And they came up with this pretty ingenious system back in 1977.
1977. Wow.
Yeah, I know.
That's almost 50 years ago.
It is.
It's incredible that it's still widely used today.
I know.
What's the secret sauce that's kept RSA relevant for so long?
It's all about math. Yeah, specifically the difficulty of factoring incredibly large prime numbers.
Okay.
Imagine trying to find the prime factors of a number with hundreds of digits.
Oh, wow.
Even with powerful computers, it would take an impractically long time.
So the security of RSA rests on the fact that it's really hard to reverse engineer these keys by factoring large numbers.
Precisely. This mathematical foundation is what makes RSA so secure and why it has stood the test of time.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
But I know that RSA isn't the only public key system out there.
Right.
The study guide also mentions Diffie-Hellman, Elgamal, and elliptic curve cryptography. How do those compare to RSA?
Well, they all leverage complex mathematical problems to ensure security, but they have different strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
Diffie-Hellman, for example, is great for securely exchanging keys between parties,
Okay.
even if they've never communicated before.
Oh, wow. So it's like setting up a secure meeting place in the digital world,
It is.
even if you've never met the other person before.
Exactly. And Elgamal built on those ideas to provide a full-fledged encryption system, kind of like RSA, but using different mathematical principles.
Okay, so different tools for different jobs.
Right.
Got it. What about elliptic curve cryptography?
Yeah.
Or ECC? I've heard that one is particularly efficient.
You're right. ECC is gaining popularity because it can achieve the same level of security as RSA, but with much shorter keys.
Okay.
So this is a big win, especially for devices with limited processing power and storage,
Yeah.
like smartphones and those tiny internet-connected devices we hear so much about.
All those IoT devices.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like finding a way to pack the same level of security into a smaller package, which is crucial for the ever-growing world of mobile and IoT devices.
Exactly. Shorter keys mean less data to process, which translates to faster encryption and decryption,
Okay.
reduced power consumption, and less strain on those tiny devices.
That's a great example of how the choice of a cryptographic algorithm can have real-world implications for performance and efficiency.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as we move towards a world where more and more devices are connected to the internet,
Right.
the importance of efficient cryptography will only increase.
This is all really cool.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder about the future of these encryption methods. What happens when quantum computers become powerful enough to break the codes that rely on these difficult math problems?
That's the million-dollar question. Quantum computing is a double-edged sword for cryptography.
Oh.
On the one hand, it threatens to break many of the systems we rely on today, like RSA.
That sounds kind of scary. Does this mean the end of secure communication as we know it?
Not necessarily. Quantum computing also presents opportunities to create entirely new quantum-resistant cryptographic algorithms.
Okay.
It's like a race against time. As quantum computers become more powerful, we need to develop new cryptographic defenses to stay ahead of the game.
So it's a constant battle between code makers and code breakers.
Yeah.
But now with quantum physics thrown into the mix.
Exactly. It's an exciting time to be in the field of cryptography.
Yeah.
There are so many brilliant minds working on these challenges.
That's reassuring to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered asymmetric encryption and the public-private key system.
Right.
Now, what about those hash functions I keep hearing about?
Oh, yes.
They seem to be a big part of cryptography, too.
They are. Hash functions are fascinating because they allow us to create a unique fingerprint
Okay.
for any digital message or file.
Interesting.
Think of it like a digital signature.
Okay.
But instead of proving your identity, it proves that the message hasn't been tampered with.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does this fingerprinting process actually work?
Okay, imagine you have a document,
Okay.
like a contract, and you want to ensure that it hasn't been altered in any way.
Mm-hmm.
You would run this document through a hash function,
Okay.
which is a special algorithm
Uh-huh.
that takes the data as input
Okay.
and produces a fixed length output
Okay.
called a hash value.
So it's like feeding the document into a machine that spits out a unique code that represents the contents of that document.
Exactly. And here's the key. Even a tiny change to the document,
Yeah.
like changing a single letter,
Wow.
will result in a completely different hash value.
That's really sensitive.
It is.
So if someone tries to tamper with the document,
Yes.
even slightly,
Even slightly.
the hash value will change.
It will.
And we'll know that something's fishy.
Exactly. And that's how hash functions help ensure the integrity of digital information.
This reminds me of those crime shows
Oh, yeah.
where they dust for fingerprints to
Yeah.
identify who was at a crime scene.
Uh-huh.
In this case, it's like we're dusting for digital fingerprints to see if a message has been tampered with.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And just like with real fingerprints, each hash value is unique,
Right.
making it very difficult to forge or tamper with.
So hash functions are like the guardians of data integrity in the digital world.
I like that. I like that.
But are there different types of hash functions, just like there are different encryption algorithms?
There are. Some popular ones include the SHA family, MD5, and RIPE-MD.
Okay.
And they all use different mathematical formulas to generate these unique fingerprints.
Okay.
But it's important to note that not all hash functions are created equal.
Oh.
Some older ones, like MD5 and even SHA-1,
Yeah.
have been found to have weaknesses and are no longer considered secure.
So it's like having outdated security systems that are vulnerable to being bypassed.
Exactly. That's why it's crucial to use strong, up-to-date hash functions to ensure the integrity of your data.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we know which hash functions are strong and which ones are weak?
Well, cryptographers are constantly analyzing and testing these algorithms
Right.
to identify any vulnerabilities.
Okay.
And security organizations like NIST,
Sure.
which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology,
Mm-hmm.
they publish guidelines and recommendations on which hash functions to use and which ones to avoid.
So it's like having a team of experts constantly evaluating the strength of these digital locks
Yes.
and advising us on which ones to trust.
Exactly. And as technology evolves and attackers become more sophisticated,
Right.
we can expect to see even stronger hash functions emerge.
That's reassuring. Okay, so we've covered asymmetric encryption and hash functions.
Mm-hmm.
Both seem to play crucial roles in securing communications
Right.
and ensuring data integrity. But how do these pieces fit together in the bigger picture of PKI?
That's a great question. And that's where digital signatures come in.
Okay.
Digital signatures are like a combination of both worlds,
Okay.
using both asymmetric encryption and hash functions
Okay.
to provide a strong proof of authenticity and integrity.
All right. I'm ready to connect the dots.
Yeah.
How do digital signatures bring these two concepts together?
Okay, so imagine You want to send a message,
Okay.
and you want to prove that it's really from you
Mm-hmm.
and that it hasn't been tampered with.
Right.
You would first create a hash of the message using a strong hash function.
Okay.
This hash acts as a unique fingerprint of the message.
Uh-huh.
Then you would encrypt this hash using your private key.
Okay.
This encrypted hash is your digital signature.
So it's like signing a document with a pen,
Yes.
but instead of ink, we're using our private key to create a digital signature that's uniquely linked to us.
Exactly. And because only you have access to your private key, this signature provides strong proof of authenticity. The recipient of the message can then use your public key to decrypt the signature
Right.
and verify that it matches the hash of the message they received.
That's really clever.
It is.
It's a way to prove both that the message came from you
Mm-hmm.
and that it hasn't been altered in transit.
Precisely. Digital signatures are used all over the digital world, from signing emails and software updates to authenticating financial transactions and securing online voting systems.
Wow. So it's like the digital equivalent of a notary seal,
Exactly.
providing assurance and trust in a world where we can't always meet face-to-face to sign documents or shake hands.
You got it. And digital signatures are a core component of PKI,
Okay.
which is what we'll dive into next.
Okay.
PKI is all about building trust and verifying identities in the digital world.
Okay. I'm excited to see how this all comes together.
Mm.
Bring on the PKI.
All right. Let's delve into the world of certificates and certificate authorities.
Okay.
It's like building a system of trust based on digital credentials.
This is where things start to feel a bit more real world. I mean, we've all seen those little lock icons in our web browsers, right?
You're absolutely right. Those lock icons are a visual indicator that you're connected to a website using HTTPS, which relies heavily on PKI.
Okay.
It all starts with digital certificates,
Okay.
which are like digital passports for websites and individuals.
So just like a passport identifies a person, a digital certificate identifies a website or an individual in the online world.
Exactly. These certificates contain information like the subject's name,
Okay.
their public key,
Uh-huh.
the issuer of the certificate,
Oh, yeah.
the validity period.
Wait, the issuer. Who
Right.
issues these digital passports?
That's where certificate authorities, or CAs, come in.
Space.
Yeah, think of them like trusted government agencies
Okay.
that issue passports in the real world.
Okay.
CAs are responsible for verifying the identities of individuals and organizations
Right.
and issuing digital certificates that bind a public key to a specific entity.
So it's like the CA is vouching for the authenticity of the website or individual, just like a passport office vouches for the legitimacy of a passport.
You got it. And just like you trust your government to issue valid passports,
Right.
you need to trust CAs to issue valid certificates.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we know which CAs to trust?
Yeah.
There must be hundreds of them out there.
There are. And that's where things get interesting.
Okay.
Your operating system and web browser
Okay.
come preloaded with a list of trusted CAs.
Okay.
These are CAs that have met certain security and auditing requirements.
So it's like my computer and browser have a built-in list of reputable passport agencies that they already trust?
Exactly. And when you visit a website that uses HTTPS, your browser checks the website certificate against its list of trusted CAs.
Okay.
If the certificate was issued by a trusted CA,
Yeah.
your browser knows it can trust the website's identity.
Okay, so that's how those lock icons work. It's
Right.
all about verifying the chain of trust. From the website certificate back to a trusted CA.
Exactly.
But what happens if a certificate is compromised or revoked?
Right.
Like if someone loses their digital passport?
That's where certificate revocation comes into play.
Okay.
CAs maintain lists of revoked certificates,
Oh.
kind of like a wanted list for bad passports.
So it's a way to flag certificates that are no longer valid or trustworthy.
Precisely. And there are mechanisms in place for browsers to check these revocation lists
Okay.
to ensure that they're not accepting a compromised certificate.
Gotcha.
It's all part of maintaining a secure and trustworthy PKI ecosystem.
This is all making a lot more sense now.
Good.
But I'm curious about the actual process of getting a certificate.
Yeah.
Is it difficult? Do you have to go through a rigorous background check like you do for a passport?
It can be a bit involved,
Yeah.
but the goal is to ensure that only legitimate entities receive certificates.
Okay.
The process typically involves generating a key pair, a public key, and a private key, and then submitting a certificate signing request,
Okay.
or a CSR, to a CA.
So it's like filling out an application for a passport, but instead of providing personal information,
Right.
You're providing your public key and other details that identify you or your website.
Exactly. The CA then verifies your identity and the information you provided in the CSR.
Okay.
And if everything checks out,
Yeah.
they issue a digital certificate that binds your public key to your identity and signs it with their private key.
So it's like the CA is putting their official stamp of approval on your digital passport.
Precisely. And that signature is what makes the certificate trustworthy.
Right.
When your browser sees that the certificate is signed by a trusted CA,
Yeah.
it knows it can trust the public key contained within the certificate.
This is all incredibly fascinating.
It is.
It's amazing to see how much intricate work goes into building a system of trust in the digital world.
It's really amazing.
Yeah.
And PKI is a crucial foundation
Yeah.
for many of the security technologies we rely on today. Without PKI, it would be much harder to trust websites, secure communications, or conduct online transactions with confidence.
Wow. PKI really is the backbone of secure communication online.
Absolutely. But it's also important to remember that PKI is not a silver bullet.
Oh.
Like any complex system, it has its own set of challenges and vulnerabilities.
Okay, that's interesting. What kind of challenges?
We'll delve deeper into those challenges in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
But for now, let's shift gears and talk about how all this cryptographic goodness is applied in our everyday lives.
All right.
From securing our devices to encrypting our emails,
Right.
cryptography is working tirelessly behind the scenes
Yeah.
to protect our data and privacy.
Sounds like a plan. I'm ready to explore the real-world impact of cryptography. Let's dive into those applications.
Okay, so we've talked about asymmetric encryption and hash functions and got a taste of PKI.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to see how this cryptography magic actually works in the real world.
Yeah, let's get practical.
Where do we even start?
Well, let's start with something close to home. Okay.
Securing the data on our portable devices.
Okay.
Think about all the sensitive information we carry around on our laptops and smartphones and tablets.
It's true. It's like our whole lives are on these devices.
Exactly. It's like having our entire digital lives in our pockets.
Right.
And so losing one of these devices would be a nightmare,
Oh, yeah.
especially if all that data fell into the wrong hands.
It would be terrible.
Yeah. So encrypting the data on these devices is so important.
Okay.
Luckily, most modern operating systems come with built-in disk encryption tools.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Like Windows has BitLocker,
Right.
Mac OS has File Vault,
Mm-hmm.
and for those who prefer open source, there's Veracrypt.
Right. I've seen those in my settings, but I'll admit I haven't really looked into them.
Sure.
How do these tools actually work?
Well, they use strong encryption algorithms, like the ones we talked about earlier, to scramble the data on your device's storage.
Okay.
It's like turning your files into unreadable gibberish without the correct decryption key.
So even if someone steals my laptop, they won't be able to access my files unless they have that key.
Exactly. These tools are designed to make it really hard for anyone without the correct credentials to get at your data.
That's a relief.
Good.
What about those encryption keys, though? Where are they stored? I don't want to lose those too.
That's a great question, and it brings us to the Trusted Platform Module,
Okay.
or TPM as it's sometimes called.
Okay.
It's a specialized chip
Uh-huh.
that's embedded in many modern computers.
Okay.
It acts like a secure vault for your encryption keys.
So it's like a tiny little Fort Knox inside my computer just for those keys.
You got it. The TPM is designed to be tamper-resistant,
Okay.
making it extremely difficult for attackers to extract the keys,
Wow.
even if they physically have your device.
It sounds like our devices are pretty well protected.
They are.
What about email, though?
Yeah.
All that sensitive information we send and receive through email.
Right.
Is there a way to protect that in transit?
Absolutely. Email encryption is crucial, especially if you're dealing with sensitive information.
Yeah.
There are a couple of popular protocols for email encryption,
Okay.
PGP and CISSP.
I've heard of those, but I'm not really sure how they work or which one is better.
Sure. So PGP stands for Pretty Good Privacy.
Okay.
It's kind of like the Wild West of email encryption.
Okay.
It's based on a decentralized web of trust model
Okay.
where users exchange public keys directly with each other.
So it's like a community of people vouching for each other's identities.
Exactly.
And sharing keys within their network.
It is. It is.
Okay, interesting. What about SMIME? How does that one work?
SMIME, which stands for Secure Multipurpose Internet Mail Extensions,
Okay.
relies on those digital certificates and certificate authorities we talked about earlier.
Okay.
It's like having an official, trusted third party handle the key management for you.
So it's a little more structured.
Right. Yeah, it's more centralized compared to PGP's web of trust model.
Gotcha. So which one is better?
It depends. really on your needs and priorities.
Okay.
If you value ease of use and integration with existing email systems, CISSP might be a good choice.
Okay.
But if you prioritize decentralization and control over your keys, then PGP could be a better fit.
So it really depends on what you're going for.
It does, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, we can't talk about online security without talking about website security. I mean, we do so much online these days.
Right.
It's so important to know that our data is protected when we're browsing the web.
Absolutely. And HTTPS is really the gold standard for website security.
Right. HTTPS.
Remember those little lock icons in our browsers?
Yeah.
That's HTTPS in action.
Mm-hmm.
And behind those lock icons is a powerful cryptographic protocol called TLS.
Right. TLS. We talked about it briefly.
We did.
I'm ready for the deeper dive now.
All right. So TLS is what establishes that secure, encrypted connection between your browser and the website server.
Okay.
So it ensures that the data exchange between them is protected from eavesdropping and tampering.
So it's like a private tunnel
Exactly.
for our data to travel through.
Exactly. And TLS is a really interesting blend of asymmetric and symmetric encryption.
Oh.
Yeah, it uses the slower but more secure asymmetric encryption for the initial handshake process,
Okay.
where the browser and server agree on a shared secret key.
So they use asymmetric just to exchange keys.
Right.
And then switch to symmetric for the rest of the communication.
Exactly.
Why not just stick with the more secure asymmetric the whole time?
Well, asymmetric encryption is slower and more computationally expensive,
Okay.
which would impact the speed and performance of web browsing.
Ah, that makes sense.
Yeah, symmetric encryption, on the other hand, is much faster and more efficient once that shared key is established.
So it's a trade-off
If you
between
wanna-
security and performance.
Exactly. TLS uses the best of both worlds. The security of asymmetric for the key exchange and the speed of symmetric for the bulk data transfer.
That's really clever.
It is.
I have heard, though, that TLS has different versions. Is there one I should be looking for to make sure I'm protected?
You are correct. TLS has gone through several iterations.
Right.
Each improving security
Okay.
and addressing vulnerabilities of the previous ones.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the original SSL, or Secure Sockets Layer, was the precursor to TLS,
Okay.
but it's now considered insecure and should be avoided.
Okay, so SSL is out.
It is.
What about the TLS versions?
So TLS 1.0 and 1.1 also have known vulnerabilities.
Okay.
So TLS 1.2 is the minimum acceptable standard today.
1.2.
But TLS 1.3, which is the latest version, is the most secure and offers significant performance improvements.
Okay, so I need to look out for 1.3.
Yes, TLS 1.3 is the gold standard.
Okay.
So keep an eye out for that lock icon and check the website's details to make sure it's using TLS 1.3.
It's good to know what to look for.
Absolutely, and it's not just about the version of TLS.
Oh.
The specific encryption algorithms used within the TLS handshake also matter,
Right.
but we can save that deep dive for another time. For now, just remember that TLS 1.3 with strong encryption algorithms is what you want to see for secure web browsing.
Okay, got it. So we've covered securing devices, email encryption,
Yep.
HTTPS for secure web browsing.
Right.
What other areas of applied cryptography should we explore?
How about VPNs?
VPNs, yeah, I've heard about those.
They've become increasingly popular, especially as more people work remotely or use public Wi-Fi,
Yeah,
which, let's be honest, who doesn't these days?
right, exactly.
But yeah, they're great for privacy and security, but I'm not sure everyone knows how they work.
Yeah, I'm one of those people. I've heard they're great, but I'm not exactly sure why I would need one.
Sure. So a VPN creates a secure, encrypted connection between your device and a VPN server,
Okay.
typically located somewhere else, like a data center or your company's network.
So it's like creating a private tunnel through the public internet.
Exactly. All your internet traffic is routed through this encrypted tunnel,
Okay.
which makes it much harder for anyone to snoop on your activity or steal your data.
That makes a lot of sense, especially if you're using public Wi-Fi, like at a coffee shop or the airport.
Right. You wouldn't want your sensitive information being intercepted by someone on the same network.
No.
Yeah. And VPNs can also be useful for bypassing censorship or accessing content that might be restricted in your region.
So it's like a digital cloak of invisibility and a passport to access the wider internet.
I like that. That's a great way to put it.
But how do VPNs actually make this happen?
Well, they typically use a protocol called IPsec,
IPsec.
or Internet Protocol Security,
Okay.
to encrypt the data flowing between your device and the VPN server.
Okay.
IPsec provides a suite of cryptographic algorithms for authenticating and encrypting network traffic.
I think I've seen that in my network settings.
You probably have.
But how does it actually work?
Okay, so IPsec offers two main modes of operation: transport mode and tunnel mode.
Okay.
In transport mode, only the payload of the data packets is encrypted,
Okay.
while the header information remains unencrypted. This is useful for securing communication between two specific devices, like your laptop and a company server.
So it's like putting the sensitive part of a letter in a sealed envelope, but leaving the address visible.
Exactly. Tunnel mode, on the other hand, encrypts the entire data packet,
Okay.
including that header information,
Okay.
and this creates a virtual tunnel between two networks, like a company's internal network and a branch office.
Right.
And it ensures that all traffic passing between them is protected.
Ah, so it's like putting the entire letter, envelope and all, inside a secure package.
Exactly.
That can only be opened at the destination.
Precisely. And IPsec offers a variety of cryptographic algorithms
Okay.
for authentication and encryption,
Right.
making it a flexible and robust solution for securing network communications.
This is so cool. It's like cryptography is this invisible force field protecting our data as it travels across the internet.
That's a great way to think about it. And the importance of secure networking will only increase as we become more reliant on interconnected networks.
Right, for everything.
For everything, exactly.
Okay, we've talked about securing devices, encrypting emails, protecting web browsing with HTTPS, and creating secure tunnels with VPNs. It seems like cryptography is everywhere, but are there any downsides?
That's a really important question.
Yeah.
Cryptography is a powerful tool,
Right.
but it's not a silver bullet.
Okay.
It's got its own challenges and limitations like any technology.
Yeah, but it's not as simple as just flipping a switch and everything's secure.
Unfortunately not, no.
Okay.
One of the biggest challenges with cryptography is key management.
Okay.
We've talked about how important it is to choose strong keys and keep them secret.
Right.
But what happens if you lose your key?
Oh, no.
Or if it falls into the wrong hands?
That would be bad.
It would.
Right.
And managing keys for a large organization
Right.
with hundreds or even thousands of users can be a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You need secure systems for generating, storing, distributing, and revoking keys.
Wow, there's a lot to it.
There is, and there's a lot that can go wrong.
It sounds like key management is this critical,
It is.
but often overlooked aspect of cryptography.
Absolutely.
Okay, so key management is important. What else is there?
Well, another challenge is the potential impact on performance.
Okay.
Encryption and decryption take processing power and time.
Right.
So this can sometimes slow down systems or applications.
So it's that balancing act again.
It is.
Security versus performance.
Exactly. You need to choose algorithms and implementations that provide adequate security without sacrificing usability or efficiency.
Okay. Makes sense. So key management and performance are important. Are there any other challenges?
Compatibility can sometimes be an issue.
Oh, okay.
Different systems and applications might use different cryptographic standards or protocols,
Right.
and this can create interoperability problems.
Like trying to fit different puzzle pieces together that don't quite match.
Exactly. It's important to choose solutions that can work seamlessly together
Yeah.
and that adhere to industry standards.
Okay, so key management, performance, and compatibility. Anything else?
Yes. Don't forget the human element.
Oh, right, of course.
Even the strongest cryptography is useless if users don't use it properly
Right.
or fall for social engineering tricks.
Right, like we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
It's a reminder that security isn't just about the technology. It's about people and awareness, too.
Precisely. We need to educate users about strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, and being cautious about phishing attempts.
Right.
It's about creating a culture of security awareness.
It's like building a fortress, with strong walls and gates.
Yeah.
But if someone leaves the door open, it doesn't matter how secure the rest of it is.
Exactly. Security is a shared responsibility.
Right.
And everyone has a role to play in protecting sensitive information.
This has been a really interesting journey so far through the world of cryptography.
It has.
And I'm really seeing how it's used to protect our data and privacy, but I'm also realizing that it's complex.
It is.
With its own challenges. It's a lot to think about.
It is.
It's not just as simple as, flipping a switch
Right.
and making everything secure.
Well, it would be nice if it were that easy.
It would. But it takes planning and implementation and ongoing management to really be effective.
It does, yes.
And it's not just about the tech itself.
Right.
It's about the people using it and the awareness and practices we put in place to support secure systems.
You're absolutely right.
Okay, so before we wrap things up,
Mm.
I do want to talk about some of those exciting new developments happening in the world of cryptography.
Yeah, let's do it.
This field is constantly evolving, and there are some amazing things coming.
There are.
What's next?
Well, one area that's generating a lot of excitement and maybe a little apprehension is quantum cryptography.
Right, quantum cryptography.
Remember those quantum computers we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
They have the potential to break many of the encryption algorithms we rely on today.
That was a bit of a scary thought. But you also said that quantum computing could lead to new, more secure cryptographic systems.
Exactly. And that's where quantum cryptography comes in.
Okay.
It leverages the principles of quantum mechanics to create encryption methods that are theoretically unbreakable, even by those powerful quantum computers.
Quantum cryptography, that sounds straight out of a science fiction movie.
It does, doesn't it? But it's a real field of research and development,
Wow.
and it has the potential to completely revolutionize how we secure our data in the future.
Okay, can you give us a peek into how this quantum cryptography magic works?
Sure. So one of the most promising approaches is called quantum key distribution,
Quantum key distribution.
or QKD.
QKD, okay.
And it uses the properties of photons,
Photons.
those tiny particles of light,
Okay.
to transmit encryption keys in a way that makes eavesdropping physically impossible.
Physically impossible. Wow, that's a bold claim.
It is. It's based on a fundamental principle of quantum mechanics.
Okay.
The act of observing a quantum system alters its state.
Okay.
So in QKD, the sender and receiver use photons to exchange encryption keys.
Mm-hmm.
But if anyone tries to intercept these photons, it disturbs their state,
Interesting.
and that alerts both parties to the intrusion.
So it's like an alarm system built into the keys themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Any attempt to tamper with the keys will be immediately detected.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is.
It sounds like quantum cryptography could be the ultimate defense,
It very well could be.
even in a world of powerful quantum computers.
It has that potential.
Okay.
Of course, there are still some technical challenges to overcome.
Right.
Transmitting photons over long distances without loss or disruption is not easy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And integrating QKD into existing network infrastructure is another hurdle.
So it's not like we can just make all our communications quantum secure overnight?
No, not quite yet.
Okay.
But research and development are moving quickly in this field,
Okay.
and we're likely to see practical applications of quantum cryptography in the coming years.
Okay, that's exciting.
It is very exciting.
It sounds like the future of cryptography is full of possibilities.
It is.
Are there any other emerging trends in cryptography that we should be aware of?
Absolutely. Another fascinating development is homomorphic encryption.
Okay, homomorphic encryption. What's that?
It's a relatively new technology that allows computations to be performed on encrypted data without needing to decrypt it first.
Wait, you can do math on encrypted data.
You can.
How's that even possible?
It sounds futuristic, doesn't it?
It does.
But it's a real technology that's gaining traction.
Wow.
So the idea is to develop encryption schemes that allow specific operations to be performed on the encrypted data
Okay.
without revealing the underlying information.
So I could send my data encrypted to a cloud provider.
Mm.
They could run calculations on it without ever seeing my actual data,
Exactly.
and then return the results still encrypted to me.
Precisely. It's like having a black box
Yeah.
that can perform computations without ever opening the lid to see what's inside.
That's incredible. What are the applications for this?
Well, it opens up all sorts of possibilities for privacy-preserving computations.
Yeah. Especially in areas like healthcare, finance, and machine learning, where sensitive data needs to be protected.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, homomorphic encryption is still pretty new
Okay.
and computationally intensive.
Right.
But it has the potential to revolutionize how we handle sensitive data in the cloud and beyond.
This is amazing.
Yeah,
The world of cryptography is always pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
it really is. And that's what makes it such a fascinating and important field. It's about constantly innovating and finding new ways to protect our data and privacy in an increasingly digital world.
Okay, so we've gone from the fundamentals of cryptography all the way to real-world applications.
Yeah.
And we even got a glimpse into the future with quantum cryptography and homomorphic encryption.
We did.
This has been an incredible journey.
It has. But before we wrap things up,
Yeah.
I want to emphasize one crucial point.
Okay.
Cryptographic knowledge isn't something you learn once and then forget about.
Right.
It's an ongoing process
Okay.
of learning and adaptation.
The landscape is constantly changing, with new threats emerging and new technologies being developed all the time.
So it's like any area of expertise.
It is.
You need to stay up to date with the latest tools and techniques to be effective.
Exactly. Reading articles, attending conferences, experimenting with new tools, it's all part of the journey of becoming a cryptography enthusiast or a security professional.
Right. It never stops.
It doesn't. And that's what makes this field so exciting. There's always something new to learn and explore.
I agree. I'm definitely feeling more curious about cryptography after this deep dive.
That's great to hear. And remember, we've only scratched the surface of this vast and complex field,
Right.
but hopefully this is giving you a good foundation and a thirst for more cryptographic knowledge.
It really has. Now I'm ready for some final takeaways.
Okay.
As we wrap up this deep dive, what are the big things listeners should remember? So we've gone from those cryptography building blocks all the way to the cutting edge and even what might be coming next.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It really has. Before we go, what are the big things our listeners should take away from all this?
I think the most important thing to remember is that cryptography isn't just some niche tech thing.
Right.
It's woven into how we live and work online. From securing our devices and communications to protecting our financial transactions and even ensuring the integrity of online voting.
It's true. We've seen how it's used everywhere.
Yeah. Cryptography is kind of the unsung hero of the digital age.
Yeah, I like that, the unsung hero.
Yeah. It's working behind the scenes, keeping us safe.
And a lot of times we don't even realize it.
Exactly. And another really important point is that cryptography is not static.
Okay.
It's constantly evolving.
Right.
New challenges and opportunities are popping up all the time.
Like we talked about with quantum computers.
Exactly. Quantum computers have the potential to disrupt the systems we use today.
Yeah, a little scary.
Yeah, it can be a bit daunting.
But they also push us to innovate and come
Yeah.
up with new solutions.
Exactly. It's a constant game of cat and mouse, like you said.
Right, between those code makers and code breakers,
It is.
but with quantum physics added in.
Exactly. So we can't just learn about cryptography once and be done with it.
Right, always got to be learning.
We do. We have to stay informed and adapt as the landscape changes.
So what do you recommend for people to stay on top of it?
Well, there are a lot of ways.
Okay.
Reading articles, attending conferences, experimenting with new tools.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things are really important
Yeah.
for staying ahead of the curve.
It's not just for security professionals either.
Right.
I mean, everyone who uses technology should have a basic understanding.
Absolutely. It's like learning basic digital hygiene.
Right.
Strong passwords, being wary of phishing attacks, keeping your software up to date.
Yeah, all the essentials.
All essential.
It's how we navigate the online world safely.
Exactly. So one final takeaway I want to emphasize.
Okay.
Cryptography is, at its core, about enabling trust. It allows us to trust websites, online transactions, the integrity of information, and each other in the digital world.
That's a great point. I mean, without that trust, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of what we do online.
Exactly. It's about creating a more secure, more trustworthy, and ultimately more empowering digital experience for everyone.
This deep dive has been amazing.
Oh, good. I'm glad you think so.
Really appreciate all your insights. It's helped me feel a lot more informed
Oh, that's great to hear.
and more empowered to navigate the digital world, securely.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Absolutely.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, this is just the beginning of your cryptographic exploration.
Yeah, there's always more to learn.
Absolutely. There's always more to learn and discover, so keep digging and keep questioning.
I will, and for anyone listening, we hope this has inspired you to learn more as well.
Yeah, there are so many great resources out there.
Absolutely.
Who knows? Maybe this is the start of your own cryptographic journey.
That would be awesome.
The world needs more people who understand the power of cryptography.
I agree. It's a field that's always evolving, full of challenges and opportunities.
Absolutely.
And it plays such a crucial role in shaping the future of the digital world.
Well, until next time, stay curious.
Stay informed.
And stay secure.
Yes, and may your cryptographic adventures be filled with wonder and discovery.